So the Morrison government wants us all to live in tiny houses. Let's have a look. Good morning, everyone. I'm Florian Heiser, and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. I've got my stein of coffee, and I'm feeling better now, and I'd like to thank my wife Rachel for stepping up. And guys, thank you for supporting her. Now she's going to get hyper-competitive, as she does, and produce more and more content, which is fantastic. We'll get some variety for the channel, which I like. Now, when I was not feeling too well, I decided to sit down and watch some YouTube, as you do. And I, watched some good old digital finance analytics. And I was listening to John Adams talk about some things. And one of the things they mentioned was here, that the Morrison government is looking to expand our tiny housing industry. Now, I don't know how I missed this. I guess I'm just... because I've got a lot of experience in modular construction, a lot of experience as an architect, and maybe I'm just a bit over it. That's why I intentionally avoided it. But I thought we'd have a look at this, and then I would just, add my input to it and my experience. So, the Morrison government wants to make tiny homes a big deal. Industry Minister Karen Andrews, a self-described fan of tiny homes, says she wants to see the prefabricated sector grow by $30 billion over the next 5 years. The sector currently makes up about 3 to 5% of Australia's $150 billion construction industry, but Ms. Andrews says it could grow by 15% to 2025. The Industry, Science and Technology Minister will welcome a study on Sunday which will look at ways to develop the prefabricated building industry. And here we've got an example of a little tiny house. What do we need to do to grow this sector, Miss Andrews told the Sunday Herald and The Age. The study will examine safety issues, regulations around prefabricated buildings, and export opportunities. Remember this. Remember how they're saying export opportunities here. Okay? Just keep that on your memory. Keep that on your memory. Particularly in the Asia-Pacific region. Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, remember that. Prefabricated construction involves any part of a building, such as the floor or a whole building that is made off-site. This includes modular construction for homes, offices, and tiny homes. The government has set aside $2 million for the initial study and then plans to set up an innovation lab to help manufacturers design prefabricated buildings. Oh, boy. Now, I've looked at this a long time ago. I did an original, I think the second video I did at Heiser Says was one on prefabricated housing, and it was called the $20,000 starter house. Now, I will just bring that up. I should have linked it in. But in that video, I looked at the concept of using a $20,000. Just typing it in, guys. So, using prefabricated modules as the basis of a new home. And, here it is here. And really looking at what you could buy at an auction. Look at that beard. Oh, you can't see it. Good. You can't see it. But I'll link to this, guys. Looking at these as the basis of starting a prefabricated house. And then going on, just looking at the fit out. And there was lots of them. These things were available. Some of them for under 10 grand, as you can see from the prices here. And then how you would combine them together in different combinations to grow from a little starter house, and then adding additional units onto it to grow your house as your family's needs grow. As your family's needs grow. Because there was a lot of stock available. Just ex-mining stock from all the boom of the mining camps that could be repurposed. I don't know why we need an innovation lab, really. Because we've got a lot of expertise in this. There's a lot of companies that have done work in this. But anyway, Mr. Andrews said there was a massive opportunity to boost the building and construction industry and potentially create an estimated 20,000 new jobs. Okay, I challenge that. I really challenge that. This shows a lack of understanding of where these things have come from and how they're manufactured. Okay? And anyway, I'll get into some of the issues here I'll discuss later. The industry minister added there were social and lifestyle benefits to tiny homes. Noting we're also very mindful of the cost of housing. Tiny homes can cost well over $100,000, but an entry-level new home with toilet and shower can sell for as little as $40,000. Yes, because they're called caravans. They are called glorified caravans. That's what these are. These are just timber and steel caravans with normal housing elements added to them. That's it. Okay, guys, this is not innovation. This is the problem here. This is the problem. People think this type of stuff is innovative. This isn't innovative. This is derivative. Okay? This is not innovation. I don't care what anyone says. Miss Andrews said tiny homes could provide more affordable accommodation as well as extra space for family members or guests. So there's many opportunities with these tiny homes. Okay, the issue isn't that these homes don't exist. You can already buy them, you can get them, you can put them on your house. You can get shipping container houses everywhere. The issue is with council regulations. That's what it is. It's with council regulations allowing people to put it on there. Completely out of your scope unless you can influence that. The industry minister said she loves the concept of tiny homes. I quite like it mainly... Well, it suits me one day. Yeah, okay, so who cares? The HIA said there was a growing number of modular manufacturers in Australia and prefabricated homes were likely to become increasingly common. The HIA Industry Policy Chief Executive, Christine Brookfield, said traditional construction methods for housing would always make up the largest part of the industry, but modular homes and prefabricated homes have many advantages. You can construct it regardless of the weather, she said. You can have a large quality control. You can be more... What bullshit is this? Okay, you can be more precise. Sure. It's... Okay. Now, there was one modular manufacturer we worked with in the northern side of Brisbane, and he was a plumber. And he was, that was his trade. So he got into this modular manufacturing, and he was super precise. He was using Inventor to model every tiny little component in these modules. He was managing to get robots to cut the tiles, install things, everything, like a car manufacturer. And he'd invested a lot of money into it. And I went and had a look at him because we were doing this and I was trying to drum more work up with different manufacturers because, we're designers, we've got experience and understanding in it, and, we can do it. But... no matter how precise he was, how fine he was proud that he could show off that, someone in defense can click on that tile, press on it in the computer model and know exactly all the information about it. Now, did that stop him from going bust? No, it didn't. Not in the slightest. He won a big job, one that was too big for him, university student accommodation. We were brought in right at the death knell when it was much too late to try and pull it all together. And we were trying to rationalize the design because he was used to designing little boxes really fine. That's a bit different from designing an entire building, designing a roof structure, taking account of fire separation and all of those issues. So, that position didn't really lead to any advantage. And that's the problem with these things, is thinking this is going to lead to a competitive advantage. It won't. If you here's a case study. Look at World War II. Compare the Russian or Soviet tank manufacturing to the German tank manufacturing. Germans had beautifully engineered tanks, down to millimeter precision. The Russians would churn out the T-34s with gaps in the armor. There'd be gaps in the armor, and they'd just be sending them rolling off the line. Who won? The over-engineered product or the mass-produced one that was good enough, got the job done, and they just kept churning them out? So that's... and the way they build these things is not that innovative. It's just they're in a big shed. They're building it in a big shed. And there's, there are advantages, but there are also big disadvantages with regards to that. So Miss Brookfield said there were some difficulties with the prefabricated buildings, including tiny homes, as building and planning codes were written with traditional construction methods in mind. The government's funding and research program has the potential to break down some of these types of barriers to uptake and look at developing more fit-for-purpose rules for modular and off-site construction. Well, I think that I've got no problem with that. That's a good idea. We've worked on some jobs where, because it was a mine that had accommodation and food production and staff that worked in the kitchen, there were all these really weird rules to where buildings could be placed from like some ancient, 70-year-old bloody Grazers Act or something, and that would influence it. And you get fined like, I don't know, £10 if you didn't clean your room or something. It was insane, some of the legislation out there that's really out of date. She said that while many people want a tiny home in their backyard to provide extra accommodation, they still need to meet local rules, such as what proportion of their land they could use or how many dwellings they could have on their block. That's the issue. Brendan Carr is head of operations at Big Tiny, a company that makes and then rents tiny homes to holidaymakers in Asia and Australia. He emphasizes the environmental benefits of tiny homes as they take up less space and use less energy. Yeah, well, let's talk about the embodied energy they have in these things, okay? We'll talk about that in a little bit later. It's small, it's compact, and it's easy to warm up. It's cozy in winter. Well, so is a blanket. He added that construction of Big Tiny homes was simple once the component parts were made, needing only a screwdriver and power tools. Okay, yes, but that's bullshit. Honestly, he's telling crap there. And there's this thing, to transport on a truck, you need additional steel. You need additional steel. It's usually with U-beams. They weld the damn things together. It's galvanized steel if it's any decent. And these are big chunks of steel. Okay? You can't make the frame out of lightweight. Most of it's hot rolled. Anyway. So yeah, you need a bit more than a screw to put that together, guys. He said Big Tiny had talked to government and agencies to try and create more standards, regulations for tiny homes around the country, noting there were big differences depending on the local government area. One big issue that people don't understand is our wind categories in different areas. So you could design a tiny home, and let's just bring up Australia on Google. You could design a tiny home for North Queensland, and the issue is that if you wanted to relocate it, no, that's the wrong one. I'm doing the wrong way around. You design a tiny home for Brisbane and you try and take it up to the tropics, North Queensland. What do you think is going to happen? So, you design it for here, for say in Brisbane, and then you want to take it up to here. There's going to be tremendous issues, even with regards to rainfall, wind speed, all of this stuff that you can't have. You can't have a standard code across the whole country. You can't. We're not like some dinky little European country that's all in one area. We're a continent, and there's tremendous differences across Australia, and that needs to be taken into account. So, he's getting caravans confused with this stuff. So, what's my experience in this? Let's have a look. So, I'll bring up the Heiser Architecture website, and this is a nice restaurant we did in Melbourne. Actually, I think he sold that. That was a restaurateur, and he was complaining about just how he'd have to shut his business because of public holiday rates. It's just too expensive to pay people. So we'll have a look here. Here's a little concept we did for CommBank. Just the little modular emergency bank branch. And then we've got some of these big mines. Large-scale mining projects through to smaller housing projects, large modular buildings, thousands of square meters. Fabricated here and then transported to remote parts of Australia, North Queensland, and Indigenous housing. And we'll look at that in a bit more detail. We'll jump over here. So these were some of the larger ones we did on the mines, and these were all modular prefabricated buildings. So each one of these, you can see where the window is on the bathhouse. Each one was a module. And this one was higher. So they were all different modules, and this was to get natural ventilation here, and this one was a modular one. This one is here. And this is why I don't know why these people are so obsessed, protesting these mines. If you go out to these places, if you go to remote Queensland, to the basin, there's nothing there. It's just scrub bush, a few animals, and people are bored out of their mind there when they're working there. But, whoop-de-doo. But they want to protest in Brisbane. They don't protest there. So, this shows you the complexity of it, all the different wall systems and just how it was designed to be as efficient as possible. And these were all fabricated in the factory and then pulled apart and trucked up. Just all the different roof areas and getting everything to fit in there because of one of the issues. One of the issues is with this, and this also goes with tiny housing, depends on how you build it, is getting it through. Here we had maximum clearances for tunnels on the site that we had to make sure that the larger modules would fit on there, so we'd prepare these type of drawings to show that. And that's an issue that needs to be taken care of. You can have the tiny houses that fold up. You build it in parts, then you build portions of it on site. Again, that's not that innovative. People have been fabricating trusses and timber frames for decades and trucking them to site and then installing them. That isn't innovation. That's normal. What you're doing is you're taking the construction of this project away from the site. You're taking it to a remote location. You're adding additional steel. Because let's have a look. We'll jump here. Jump over here. So this is the admin building I showed you here, big office building really on a mine. And this portion here is quite interesting because that was the server room, so it had to have all the, it was actually a concrete floor prefabricated down here in Yeronga. But what we'll do is each one of these modules has all of this. And this is the steel structure. This is the steel structure. So you've got some UCs, parallel flange channels, PFCs, running either side. You've got SHSs strengthening it, and then you've got the floor joists running across. Now, you don't put this together with a screwdriver, like he said. You don't. This is a volumetric one. Then you've got all the framing out. This one was large to get the open span for an office. Okay, and you can reduce the sizes somewhat if you've got walls there to strengthen it up, have some framing, that type of thing. But this here, generally, the rule of thumb is when you're building one of these buildings that has to be transported, you need about 30% additional steel otherwise, because of the movement on the structure as it's getting lifted, craned, moved on the truck, pulled apart, those type of things. Even for the little ones. That's all additional resources in there. Remember, you're comparing this. Essentially, you're building a caravan, guys. These things are caravans. Building it on site, you'll replace all of this with an in-ground slab. You'll replace it with an in-ground slab. Then you won't have to have any of the galvanizing. You won't have to have any of the inspection issues. Underneath, sure, you have to inspect the slab and protect it for termites, but it has some advantages too. It has some advantages as well. So we'll jump back here. We'll have a look. So some of the housing stuff we worked on, we did lots and lots of modular mining stuff, like tons of it. Back in the peak, I was covering my costs of my business. We got up to 12 staff at one stage. 12 people. We were doing concept after concept after concept. And every man and his dog would be trying to make their fortune getting these things manufactured overseas in Southeast Asia, where apparently there's export opportunities for Australia. Export opportunities. What we saw in the article here. No, I doubt it. The guy who was prefabricating it using robotics and super precise systems could almost meet the rate of the imported Chinese product. And this is entire modules, because to do with, prepayment, and he could take payment in different, he could take progressive payments differently to the Chinese manufacturers. You'd be risking more. You have to pay a whole lot up front to get it over, where he could do it here and have better quality. But that was because he was fabricating it using robotics. He had his systems really refined, and he made his little bathroom pods fantastically. Whereas everyone else is manufacturing it using traditional methods, where it just runs on a conveyor system where they push it with a bunch of wheels, put down the frame and just build it up. They get the trades in and they just do it one at a time. Rather than driving to a site, they're doing it here. And they're finishing it off in the factory, which is fine. But, assuming that Australia is going to have a chance to compete with Asia, I think is a bit far-fetched, frankly, with regards to this. I think it'll be the other way around. I think our technical ability and our quality could give us an edge, maybe with large multinationals going overseas, maybe, mines being developed in Southeast Asia, perhaps. But even then, it's a challenge. They often you'll find Australian manufacturers will source components or portions of the building offshore and bring it here. And it's just because they're so much cheaper. The costs are so much cheaper. The square meter rate is so much cheaper, and the technology and quality is just catching up, or if not better already. So it depends on who you get. There was a whole lot of issues with dodgy steel coming in, but that had been resolved too. So it's just something to think about, guys. I wouldn't be pinning 20,000 new jobs on this sector. Not at all. No, I don't think as much as people would imagine. So, we looked at that. We looked at large, really big camps, really big camps with all of these, just reconfiguring them. We did a proposal, a Commonwealth Games option to build all the houses out of modular units as well. I'm glad that didn't get up, to be honest. That's We looked at indigenous projects for bridging the gap, building modular and indigenous housing. That could be fabricated, and there could be some elements of construction done on site, and you'd have all, as well as having the house, you'd have all the space underneath to occupy, because particularly in northern Queensland, you're doing most of your living outdoors. Just with the way it is. We designed it with multiple entrances and exits, the ability for little sleeping nooks to be created everywhere. Unfortunately, it didn't go ahead. But you see, here it was built out of several modules, and then the certain other portions were built in situ. But what about, here we can have a look at this, and I'll just jump to, you can see it in Rivet here in our program. It's been a while since I've opened these files. They're like 6 years old, so the text is all a bit chunky. But you can see here. Hang on, let me turn on this section box, guys. Let me turn on this section box. Can you see that? Good, that's working. So we'll zoom in. We did a lot of different options of these things. Actually, this killed us to get it done in the time frame. So the idea was you'd have decks either end, so you could get ventilation through. We'd have louvers here, so you get ventilation all the way through. This area could be a sleep out. This could be a sleep out. And you'd have the ability to have privacy from people not seeing family members go into the bathroom, trying to address some of the cultural issues. It's very difficult. So yeah, there you go. This was a 2-bedroom modular one option with little spaces for sleeping out, and we made more and more options. Here we had a 4-bedroom option as well. You can see here 1, 2, 3, 4. But what about tiny houses? Now we were invited to do a submission for a golf course who wanted to build some hotels. So we did a workshop where we got the whole team together. We only got some of the people in here, but still. And we just tested different little options to build a tiny little hotel module that could be fabricated off-site and plonked on-site with in-situ elements built. And we just chucked any idea out there as we could. And that's kind of what you do. And then we came up with, these type of little views here. As a concept with in-situ elements built. The idea was it'd be like a little weekender where you could relax and just look over the lake and just enjoy it. And let's have a look around here. And I'll just take you for a little walk. You can see, it was very simple. How the entry, and this would be done in situ, where this would be built as a very simple kind of shipping container-esque type of thing. You come in here, you got your little bathroom. Did we put the shower in? Oh, cupboard. Yeah, sorry, a little bathroom back here with a little clothes store, and you'd have a little bed coming off there, and just this outdoor area here, looking out over the river, or the lake, where this would be built in situ, and you'd have planties grown up and make it look nice, modern. And the idea was just using FC sheeting behind with just some battens fixed to it, which wouldn't be a waterproofing issue. I would literally just glue them on there with M3 tape and just paint them, so it's really no waterproofing. It's a real simple idea. And then, building it as a tiny hotel pod. So yeah, that was what we looked at as an option there. Now, I'm critical of this because claiming that there's going to be export opportunities in Asia Pacific, I would challenge. I would say our industries aren't as competitive. I think we're gonna hit a lot of competition. Sure, maybe it could work. Maybe it could. But the thing is, there are a lot of people already doing this here in Australia. There's a lot of manufacturers already doing it, and we work for them. There's a lot of school buildings that are done like this, and there is definitely a place in the market for it. But if thinking it's going to be a solution for all housing, I think is short-sighted. It really is. I'd like this money, rather than focusing on export opportunities, fantastic, good if you can, focusing on freeing up legislation at a council level to allow people to build what they want. If people want to have a little tiny house at the back of their yard, why not? Let them do it. If you want to reduce the cost of housing, remove some of the red tape with regards to construction. And what I'm saying is maybe get rid of insulation requirements in buildings. Maybe let people be a bit colder if they want to save that money. You know, it all adds up, and it takes a long time to pay for itself. So that's the thing. It's a fine juggling act. If you deregulate too much, you get to the point where we're getting all these issues on these other buildings. But when remember, everything you add on top of the requirements just adds additional cost and makes these houses cost more. So guys, I thought I would just add my 2 cents to this. You know, there's going to be additional steel cost, there's additional movement cost, then there's craneage cost, all this stuff associated with these buildings that does not exist on a traditional house. You could build this on the back of a side, probably for a comparable price, if not a little bit cheaper, if you're just putting a slab in. You know, if you're putting a slab in. But then you can't move it around. You know, so you can build the ones that have wheels on it. They're pretty much a caravan, which people are doing now. They're just building it on a caravan chassis and driving around and parking it there, which, you know, that's no issue with that. No issue with that. But as well, you know, if you want to age in place in one of these things, you're not going to have enough room in them because they're too small. They're too small to meet disabled access requirements. Because if we look here, let's just have a look. Let's have a look here. You can see, okay, this is a normal toilet here. This is like multiple toilets. And this is a disabled toilet here. When we have all the turn circles into it, and it's several meters. What is it? 2.7 by 1.6. Oh, that seems a bit small. 2.7, 1.6 is internally. Okay, a bit bigger. So that's the thing. You need a lot of space for these bathrooms. This isn't just like a little 900mm wide bathroom like you're going to get in one of these things. Okay, so the tiny houses, sure, they have a place, but with an aging population, they're not going to meet the performance requirements that people are going to expect either. I mean, here you go. This is what we did here. This isn't compliant either with regards to aging in place. It's just not enough space. You need to redesign it. And there's also another push coming from government to implement that, to have accessibility in our housing. So what are you going to do? Do you want the tiny little houses that have got no chance of complying with the legislation? You know, that are going to be super small and cute and everyone loves them. You know, that, and also, I would say they're not fit for people to age in place. I'll bravely make that claim now. They're not fit to age in place. You have to adapt them. They're not going to be big enough. Sure, maybe you could design. You could probably get one working, but it's going to just be a big bathroom and a bedroom. It's going to be a studio. That'd be the way to do it. That'd be different to this. You couldn't get a house like this where you'd be comfortable living in and getting the most efficient use of space in the middle of your life and age in place. In there, you're going to have to change. Which, okay, if you want to do, that's fine. That can happen. You couldn't raise a family in a house like this. I couldn't have 4 kids in a house like this. Probably for a young couple or a single person, you could. So guys, you know, let me know what you think. If you're a fan of tiny houses, if you want the government to just let people do it, you think it's worth the government investing in this sector. And yeah, guys, thanks for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe. Ding the bell, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye for now.